Short story, read. Video 5. Put her about, he said. I can't anchor here. Keep in mind that about here is like in the opposite direction. Okay? In your list there, in Quizlet, I put something like this. Turn about and walk away slowly. So let's imagine, I don't know, we see a fierce dog and then, you know, your friend tells you in a very soft voice, just turn about and walk away slowly. Right? So put her about, he said, I can't anchor here. Pause the video, question. Who is her? I won't answer yet, this first one. Second question. Why can't the captain anchor where he is? Remember to answer to yourself. Don't think about the answer, okay? It's too vague. It's not linguistically productive. Answer aloud. Either send me a message or answer aloud to yourself. So the question, why can't the captain anchor there? Answer, because he is close to the reef, right? The bottom of the ship may hit, you know, some of the rocks and etc. So he has to go, he has to turn about and go back to deep water so that the bottom of the ship will be safe. Remember, I haven't answered the first question yet. They went out to sea, and they went out to sea a little, and presently it was quite dark. They anchored. When the sail was furled, the ship began to row a good deal. They said in Apia that one day she would row right over. Question. Who is she? Before I answer, I hope you have tried. You may have answered. No, let me answer to you. She is the ship. Okay? And her in the beginning is the ship again. Put her about. Put the ship about. But then I have a question. Shouldn't it be it? Put it about. You know? Or people said that it would row right over. Answer, yes and no. Yes, you are right. We should be using it for things, right? And for animals that we don't have any kind of affection with. But English has this very nice device. You can use she when you're talking about an object or a thing that is dear to you. So for example, there is a book about the United States called America, Her Beauty and Her People. Okay, I'll post a video with further examples and explanation in the description of this video. They said in Apia that one day she would row right over, and the owner, a German American who managed one of the largest stores, said that no money was big enough to induce him to go out in her. The cook, a Chinese in white trousers, very dirty and ragged, and a thin with white trousers, very dirty and ragged, and a thin tunic, came to say that supper was ready. And when the skipper went into the cabin, he found the engineer already seated at the table. The engineer was a long, lean man with a scraggy neck. He was dressed in blue overalls and sleeveless jersey, which showed his thin arms tattooed from elbow to wrist. You know elbow, right? And you know wrist, right? Wrist, elbow, of course you do. Well, some questions before we work on vocabulary. Why doesn't the owner of the ship want to go to travel on her? Second question. Why? No, I don't think I have many questions. Let's work with vocabulary because my other questions will need vocabulary. Sorry about that. Okay, so I've already told you about, right? So about is not just this book is about, but can be completely around, okay? And then we have presently. Be careful because presently here doesn't mean just present, okay? When something happens presently, something happens soon, shortly, okay? Before long, in a little time are the expressions I put in our Quizlet. Furled is interesting. Keep in mind that imagine your sail is here. You're not going to fold, you know, I'm folding the piece of paper now. You're not going to fold it. You're going to furl because it's fabric, right? So you're going to do like this, and then probably there will be some ropes. You're going to do like this, and then this is a furled sail. Unfurl is to do like this. We use furl, by the way, a lot to talk about flags, okay? If you unfurl the flag, so you put the flag there to for everybody to see it. So they don't want to sail anymore. Of course, they furled the sails. And then there's this thing about row. Keep in mind there's the regular row that is like this, right? So you can row. But if a ship rows, and this is pretty much used, it goes like this, you know, and then you start getting seasick, you know. So row a big deal, and it rowed so much, the ship, that some people said she would roll right over. Just like I think in the Pirates of the Caribbean, there is a scene, they have to go to a magical place, something like that. So they start running from here to here, so the ship would row and row and row until it rowed right over. And of course that would destroy any ship out of the fantasy world, right, realm. The man, the engineer there, is a lean. Lean is thin. Remember we use lean a lot for meat. Lean meat, right? Lean ham is like people say that Sadia has the leanest ham, right? Let me see. I have a sentence with row, but I've already given you many examples. But the ship pitched and rowed in heavy seas. If the ship pitches, it goes like this, okay, because this is pitch, right? And row, so pitch and row in the rough seas. Apia is the capital of Samoa, alright? Roll over. Oh, by the way, I put a nice picture of a dog rolling over. That's another very important example there. Okay. So let me see. Overalls. I also put a picture, I hope, there. So if you're wearing overall, you are wearing those pants that are connected to the upper part, right? Babies wear overalls, or people working farms in the United States. We always have this image of them wearing overall, right? Scraggy is bony and lean. Remember that now we know the adjective lean. And for you there I put a picture of a lean dog and a very bony dog, so it's a scraggy dog. And for and then we have a jersey, right? A jersey is it's like a polo shirt, to simplify things. Okay? So let me read it one more time. They went out to sea a little, and presently it was quite dark. They anchored. When the sail was furled, the ship began to row a good deal. They said in Apia that one day she would row right over. and the owner, a German American who managed one of the largest stores, said no money was big enough to induce here convince, right, to go out in her. The cook, a Chinese in white trousers, very dirty and ragged, and a thin white tunic, came to say that supper was ready. Remember, supper is another way to say dinner, right? And the Last Supper, for example, is that very famous painting, right, with Jesus and all the apostles in the Last Supper. So he came to say that the supper was ready. And when the skipper went into the cabin, he found the engineer already seated at the table. The engineer was a long, lean man with a scraggy neck. He was dressed in blue overalls and a sleeveless jersey, which showed his thin arms tattooed from elbow to wrist. "Hell, having to spend the night outside," said the skipper. "Outside where?" "Outside the lagoon there, right?" Question. What is the difference? Why is it better to spend the day? I'm not thinking that they would go to the island, okay? Because of course they would, but what is the difference between spending, imagine, on the ship, right? On the ship, spending the day out in the ocean and in the lagoon? Answer. Well, the ship wouldn't roll, right? The sea inside the lagoon is very calm, and I guess it's much more comfortable to sleep in a ship that is not rolling than on a ship that is rolling so much, okay? Why am I asking those questions? Because I wanted to master the vocabulary, but also because it's important for us to take this story seriously and imagine it as a reality, okay? So we're going to imagine the advantages and the disadvantages and etc. I don't know, another thing, I don't know, you run the risk if you are out in the sea, if it starts to rain, then you run the risk of, I don't know, having to deal with the rough seas, things like that, right? So maybe those are two nice ideas. Hell, having to spend the night outside, said the skipper. The engineer did not answer, and they ate their supper in silence. The cabin was lit by a dim oil lamp. When they had eaten the canned apricots with which the meal finished, the chink brought them a cup of tea. The skipper lit a cigar and went on the upper deck. The island now was only a darker mass against the night. The stars were bright. The only sound was the ceaseless breaking of the surf. Well, I won't have time to work with this paragraph here in this video. Next video I will. Just keep in mind, I want to give you one word before we finish. Chink, okay? It's just like saying Jap. A chink is somewhat more, of course, informal, but somewhat offensive, and some people would think it's a very offensive way of calling Chinese.